I'm Jamie with the Volusia County Public Library. In this video, you will learn how to make a notebook and stitch a fun book-themed design on the cover. You will need the following: 5 sheets of cardstock, or 1 sheet of cardstock for the cover and 4 pieces of regular paper for the inside of your notebook. Embroidery floss in your choice of colors. I'll be using a variety of colors today, but you can use just one color if you'd like for your design. A pair of scissors, masking tape or painter's tape, a scrap piece of cardboard or corkboard, some push pins for making those holes, a needle with a large enough eye for your embroidery floss to fit through, our design template, which is available in the links to this video. And optional, you might want some clear packing tape to put on the back of your design at the end. Let's get started. We're going to start by folding each sheet in half, and we want to make sure that we crease them well. And then cardstock, you'll probably want to fold individually because it's thicker. So this is going to be my cover here. So we're going to take our inside pages and make sure they're in the order that you'd like them. And we are going to set those to the side. We won't need these until the end of our project now. And we're going to keep our cover. So if you're using all cardstock, decide which one you want to be your cover. So we're going to take our cardboard or your corkboard, and we have our template that we've provided. And I'm going to go ahead and trim off the extra side here, so we don't need that. And we're going to take the cover of our notebook and open it up so that we are only putting the holes in the cover. We're going to take our template and line that up. And we're going to use our masking tape or painter's tape to tape our template onto the cover. Ideally, you want to make sure that you're not putting tape on your cardstock, but the masking tape or painter's tape is a little more forgivable and should be able to be peeled off without ruining your cardstock underneath. But we tried to make it so that the template would be big enough that you can tape on your copy paper and not on your cardstock underneath. So we are ready to start putting the holes in for our design. So I had a couple of push pins because we're going to put one in the topmost point of our design, and we're going to be putting holes wherever 2 lines come together. So I'm going to put one in the top to help stabilize our design a little more to make sure that it doesn't move on us. So we're going to take a second push pin, and I recommend either sticking with one design element or kind of working your way from top to bottom or side to side or bottom to top to make sure that you hit all of the points that need to have holes. So if I start with this flower here, I'm just going to push in. I don't have to go all the way down. You're just making sure that you get the hole in the cardstock. We don't have to worry about putting a hole all the way through your corkboard or your cardboard. But it's anywhere that 2 lines come together. So the point of that triangle, and then each corner there, and then we can continue with the next petal of the flower, kind of going around like that. Now it does get, our flower in the center here is a little more intricate and complicated. I did find where our points aren't necessarily touching but are close, you can kind of just put one point in the center. So right here we have 2 points of our petals that are really close. If I put 2 separate holes, the paper may tear when I embroider. So I'm just going to put 1 hole in the center there. And then where that petal touches the center point here, like I can do 1 hole there. So when it comes to this middle one, when you see 2 points that are close like those, we can just put 1 hole there, and that's good. Now the bottom of the book, here are the pages of the book, the bottom we made thicker, so I did put 2 holes here, because when we embroider I'm going to show you how I made those lines look thicker than the rest of the lines in the design. And I'll put 2 holes here on the other side of the cover of the book. And then for the spine of the book, I put 2 holes on each end of that. And then I did just 1 hole in the center here. And so that will connect my 3 stems, and also my 3 pages from this side will come into that hole, and my 3 pages from that side will come into that hole. So that, where everything kind of comes together there, I just put 1 hole and all of our threads will come into there, which you'll see when we're embroidering. So go ahead and continue with your push pin and make sure you get all those spots where lines come together, and make your holes, and I'll meet you back here. So we've punched our holes for our whole design here, so we're ready to remove our template and our cardstock from your cardboard or your corkboard. It may look a little intimidating when you pull it off at first. You just have a bunch of dots. So you're going to want to keep your template handy as we start stitching, and it'll all start to make sense soon, I promise. So I recommend using just a single strand of embroidery floss for the majority of the design, but because we made this book cover that thicker line and the spine of the book, and to give it kind of more weight and to stand apart from the rest of the design, I recommend doing a 2-strand for that one. So we're going to thread our needle. So with most, I would leave a tail and then tie a knot in the end here, which will give me just a single strand of stitching. I'm going to do that for the rest of the design, but for this book cover, I'm going to go ahead and pull all the way through so my ends are even, and I'm going to tie a knot. I like to wrap it around my finger and then kind of roll it off, and that usually gives you a nice knot like that, but however you knot your thread will work. We're going to start with our needle through the back of our cover here. So if I look at my design, I can see these 2 dots here and these 2 here are the cover of the book, and then the 2 here at the bottom are the spine. So I'm going to go ahead and put my needle through the top corner of the cover there. And remember, you are pulling through cardstock, so you don't want to pull too tight, but you want to make sure you don't have any leftover thread in the back, of course. And then I'm going to go all the way across to that top corner for the other side. And then I'm going to go down to the bottom corner on that same side, and we're going to go across back to the other corner. So that gives us an extra thickness for the cover of our book. And then we have our spine under there, so I'm going to go into the top corner on the part of our spine and go across down to the bottom corner there, and across. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this off now. So I flip it over. I have some thread here, so I can kind of pull the needle through that extra stitch I had there, and then through this loop of extra embroidery thread and pull it tight. That'll give me kind of a first knot there. I'm going to snip off some of the extra. Because this one I have the 2 strands that I used, I can go ahead and separate them and just tie a double knot in there. And then I will trim off the extra. So I've gone ahead and threaded my needle with a different color. I'm going to be working on the stems and the leaves next. So because I'm going to only be stitching with one thread thickness for the rest of the design, you can see I've pulled my embroidery floss through the needle, but I've left it as a tail there. So I'm only going to put a knot with the one strand there. So again, I just roll it around my finger and pull a little knot there. So we're going to start in the back again. Now because I'm working on the stems and leaves, I'm going to go ahead and start in this bottom center hole, which has kind of been hidden underneath our book cover. So I'm going to come up through that. So now I'm going to kind of look, so I see this first dot here starts a leaf, and then the second dot is actually the curve of the stem. So I'm going to go up to that second one so that I have a nice straight line for my stem. If you are not worried about a straight line, you can of course do it in a different order if you'd like. I'm then going to go ahead and go back. So the order of this kind of depends on how you would like to work through your design. I could have continued all the way up and finished the stem, but I'm going to go ahead and jump back and do this leaf here. So I've come up through the bottom point of the leaf, and then I'm going to go to one side. So there's one side of my leaf, and this is where you kind of have to double back on yourself. So I'm going to come up through the top point of the leaf, but as you can see, I don't have a line of thread there. So I need to go back to that corner one more time to complete that side. So now I can come back to the point of our stem that I had started. I can pull through there, and I can look at my design and I see it kind of goes straight up, and I do have the second leaf here, so it's this hole. So I could come back and do the second leaf, or I see the stem goes all the way up to this point here. I could go ahead and finish this stem by coming up here and then coming back down through and then doing the leaf here. Once I finish this leaf and stem, I would go ahead and move to our middle stem. Depending on where you leave off, you can jump to a leaf and continue, or you can jump back to the center. So you're going to continue this. If you're doing it all in one color, then you're just kind of working your way through. I'm going to go ahead and switch colors. My pages are going to be a light gray. I'm going to do 2 purple flowers with yellow centers, and then my middle flower here is going to have the yellow center with, I have this pretty variegated embroidery floss pink here that I'm going to use. So go ahead and continue stitching your design the same way we did here, going back and making sure all your lines connect. Have your pattern here as a reference, and I'll meet you back here when you're done. Next, we're ready to bind our book. So we're going to bring back in our 4 center pages that we folded, and we're going to tuck them inside our cover with our finished design on there. We want to make sure the spine, the fold, the crease is all lined up there for our notebook. We're going to open it up then, and we're going to take our push pins, and you're going to put one in the center. Just kind of estimate, and you want to make sure that it goes through all of your pages. So if you're using 5 sheets of cardstock, you might need to kind of work your way through all 5 sheets. You can also kind of do it individually, but you want to make sure that your crease and your holes, of course, all line up. I'm going to go ahead and just use 3 push pins. If you only have one, you can take it out and do this step, but we're going to put one towards the top of the book, about in the center, between that center point and the top, and then between the center point and the bottom, we're going to put a 3rd push pin. So you'll end up with 3 holes along the crease of your book. Then we're going to take those out. So we have our 3 holes. I have already threaded my needle now with the color I'd like for the binding of my book, and I made it about 4 times as long from the top hole in my spine here to the bottom hole. So about 4 times as long as this space here, and we are not going to put a knot in the end of this thread. We're going to go down through the center hole, so making sure that you get all of your pages there. And we are going to leave a tail hanging there. We are then going to come up through one of the other holes. It doesn't matter if you go through the bottom or through the top hole, you're going to come up through either of these. And then we are going to go down through the opposite. So whichever one you didn't come up through, we're going to go down through. And we are going to go up through the center again. Try and make sure you're not splitting the thread like that from your first one. So kind of pull that to the side and pull up. Okay. So we are done with our needle. We can take that off. You're going to want to make sure that this is nice and tight on the outside, nice and tight on the inside, because this is what's going to hold your notebook together. Now my ends are not even. If I wanted to even them out, I can kind of pull this extra thread through and then pull that first end if I want to even them out. I'm not going to leave mine too long here, so I'm fine with this length. I'm going to go ahead and move this one to the other side so they kind of split this string here, and I'm going to go ahead and do a double knot to secure my binding. You can just leave it at a double knot if you'd like, or you can tie a little bow in it. That is our finished stitch notebook.
I hope you have enjoyed making this stitched notebook. Comment below if you're interested in more patterns and what you'd like to see. If you're interested in more embroidery crafts, you can check out these books and more at your library, as well as the Creative Bug Database. And remember, stay crafty, Volusia.